Srimad Bhagavatam, translated with commentaries by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. First Canto, Chapter 6, Conversation between Narada and Vyasa. Text 1. Sutta said, O Brahmins, thus, hearing all about Sri Narada's birth and activities, Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God and son of Satyavati, inquired as follows. Purport. Vyasadeva was further inquisitive to know about the perfection of Naradaji, and therefore he wanted to know about him more and more. In this chapter, Naradaji will describe how he was able to have a brief audience with the Lord while he was absorbed in the transcendental thought of separation from the Lord, and when it was very painful for him. Text 2. Sri Vyasadeva said, What did you, Narada, do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you from the beginning of your present birth in scientific transcendental knowledge? Purport. Vyasadeva himself was the disciple of Naradaji, and therefore it is natural to be anxious to hear what he did after initiation from the spiritual master. He wanted to follow in Narada's footsteps in order to attain to the same perfect stage of life. This desire to inquire from the spiritual master is an essential factor to the progressive path. This process is technically known as Satdharma Pricha. Text 3. O son of Brahmā, how did you pass your life after initiation? And how did you attain this body after quitting your old one in due course? Purport. Sri Narada Muni in his previous life was just an ordinary maidservant's son. So, how he became so perfectly transformed into the spiritual body of eternal life, bliss, and knowledge was certainly important. Sri Vyasadeva desired him to disclose the facts for everyone's satisfaction. Text 4. O great sage, time annihilates everything in due course. So, how is it that this subject matter, which happened prior to this day of Brahmā, is still fresh in your memory, undisturbed by time? Purport. As spirit is not annihilated, even after the annihilation of the material body, so also spiritual consciousness is not annihilated. Sri Narada developed his spiritual consciousness even when he had his material body in the previous kalpa. Consciousness of the material body means spiritual consciousness expressed through the medium of a material body. This consciousness is inferior, destructible, and perverted, but superconsciousness of the supermind in the spiritual plane is as good as the spirit soul and is never annihilated. Text 5. Sri Narada said, The great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way. Purport. In his previous life, when Naradaji was impregnated with spiritual knowledge by the grace of the great sages, there was a tangible change in his life, although he was only a boy of 5 years. This is an important symptom, visible after initiation by the bona fide spiritual master. Actually, association of devotees brings about a quick change in life for spiritual realization. How it is so acted upon the previous life of Sri Narada Muni is described by and by in this chapter. Text 6. I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a simple woman, but was a maidservant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative for protection. She bound me with the tie of affection. Text 7. She wanted to look after my maintenance properly, but because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything for me. The world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master. Text 8. When I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in a Brahmin school. I was dependent on my mother's affection and had no experience of different lands. Text 9. Once upon a time, my poor mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent, influenced by supreme time. Purport. This is the way of dragging a sincere soul nearer to God. The poor boy was looked after only by his affectionate mother, and yet the mother was taken from the world by the supreme will, in order to put him completely at the mercy of the Lord. Text 10. I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees, and so thinking, I started for the north. Purport. Confidential devotees of the Lord see, in every step, a benedictory direction of the Lord. What is considered to be an odd or difficult moment in the mundane sense is accepted as special mercy of the Lord. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, and by the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished, and spiritual health is obtained step by step. Mundane people misunderstand it. Text 11. After my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, and natural forests. Purport. Man's activities in the fields of agriculture, mining, farming, industries, gardening, etc., were all on the same scale as they are now, even previous to the present creation. And the same activities will remain as they are, even in the next creation. After many hundreds of millions of years, one creation is started by the law of nature, and the history of the universe repeats itself, practically in the same way. The mundane wranglers waste time with archaeological excavations without searching into the vital necessities of life. Sri Narada Muni, even though he was a mere child, after getting an impetus in spiritual life, did not waste time for a single moment with economic development, although he passed towns and villages, mines and industries. He continually went on to progressive spiritual emancipation. Srimad Bhagavatam is the repetition of a history which happened some hundreds of millions of years before. As it is said herein, only the most important factors of history are picked up to be recorded in this transcendental literature. Text 12. I passed through hills and mountains full of reservoirs of various minerals, like gold, silver, and copper, and through tracts of land with reservoirs of water filled with beautiful lotus flowers, fit for the denizens of heaven, decorated with bewildered bees and singing birds. No purport. Text 13. I then passed alone through many forests of bamboo, sharp grass, weeds, and caves, which were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, and dangerously fearful forests, which were the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals. Purport. It is the duty of a mendicant, Parivrajacacharya, to experience all varieties of God's creation by traveling alone through all forests, hills, towns, villages, etc., to gain faith in God and strength of mind, as well as to enlighten the inhabitants with the message of God. A sannyasi is duty-bound to take all these risks without fear, and the most typical sannyasi of the present age is Lord Chaitanya, who traveled in the same manner through the central Indian jungles, enlightening even the tigers, bears, snakes, deers, elephants, and many other jungle animals. In this age of Kali, sannyas is forbidden for ordinary men. One who changes his dress to make propaganda is a different man from the original ideal sannyasi. One should, however, take the vow to stop social intercourse completely and devote life exclusively to the service of the Lord. The change of dress is only a formality. Lord Chaitanya did not accept the name of a sannyasi, and in this age of Kali, the so-called sannyasis should not change their former names, following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. In this age, devotional service of hearing and repeating the holy glories of the Lord is strongly recommended, and one who takes the vow of renunciation of family life need not imitate the Parivrajacacharya like Narada or Lord Chaitanya, but may sit down at some holy place and devote his whole time and energy to hearing and repeatedly chant the holy scriptures left by the great acharyas, like the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Text 14. Thus, traveling, I felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. So I took a bath in a river lake and also drank water. By contacting the water, I got relief from my exhaustion. Purport. A traveling mendicant can meet the needs of body, namely thirst and hunger, by the gifts of nature, without being a beggar at the doors of the householders. The mendicant, therefore, does not go to the house of a householder to beg, but to enlighten him spiritually.